Okay. This is a video on the division of the earth pre-Sumeria. So we're going to divide the earth now, and who the rulers are post-deluge and pre-recorded first civilization. And in this time, you have earthlings. You have the Nodite culture, which are the descendants of Atlantis, the Garden of Eden. You have the Aryans. These are the wanderers, the descendants who came and intermingled with the daughters of men, who were the Adamites. And you have the Adamite culture mixed with the Nodites. You have a whole race here. And you have, before even Sumeria, you have locations that connect heaven, the sky above, and the earth. These locations are Baalbek, Lebanon. You have a huge stone platform there. You have Jerusalem. It's not called Jerusalem at this time. It's called Salem, where the Melchizedek missionaries arose from in the time of Abraham. This is another major center where another major platform was built. You have the Nile Valley Delta and the civilization there, and you have the Great Sphinx, as well as the pyramids located in Egypt. So these locations are already present before Sumeria. All right. So one of the major symbols of the Saudi Peninsula, and even in the Sinai Peninsula, where it was joined, is the symbol of the crescent moon and of the star. Now, this is the iconography that is represented by modern day Islam. But the Sinai Peninsula and the Saudi and Sinai Peninsula is the symbol of Nanar Sin, which is where we get the name Sinai. Sinai comes from Sin, which is the symbol of the moon god in pre-Sumerian culture. He was the firstborn son of Enlil, which means Lord of the Command. Um, in Egypt, he was known as El, where we get Elohim. It is the God, the highest of the highest, the holy of the holy in Mesopotamian culture. And his firstborn son, Nanar Sion, becomes the moon god. And the moon has a higher rank in their ranking system of the sun. Modern day people, they attribute this star to the planet Venus, which would be representation of the moon's daughter being Ishtar or Inanna. But more closely, in pre-Sumerian culture, the Indus Valley civilization isn't established yet, which was given to Inanna to be her domain. The star in Pre-Sumeria represents the sun, and this was ruled by Utu. Shamash becomes the sun god. And there's a ranking system from 0 to 60. 60 being the highest command held by Anu, the Lord of the Heavens. 50 being held by Enlil, and his number over his region of Mesopotamia is given unto him. 30 being the rank of the moon is given unto Nanar Sion, and his son Utu Shamash, whose symbol is the sun, the star, and later becomes the swastika, has the rank of 20. Now, these descendants from the Sinai Peninsula which later becomes the Ottoman Empire. These would become the Muslims, and were a lot of the descendants of the Aryans, those who came from heaven unto earth and mated with the daughters of men. Their primary region was in the Saudi Peninsula. So we'll go into a map here. Okay. So these regions of the Sinai Peninsula all the way to the southernmost regions in Saudi Arabia, they are given unto Nanarsin, the moon god. Shamash, which represents by the star, he gets Sinai. Now, upper regions, see, these heaven and earth connecting sites, Jerusalem is a heaven and earth connecting site. These are all along the West Bank. These fall into the domain of Nanarsin, whose symbol is the crescent moon. So Nanarsin's brother, Ishkor, his domain is from Lebanon in the landing platform of Baalbek to the Ararat regions in the north of Azerbaijan, Armenia, Georgia. This region of Ararat, where you get Noah, or in Sumerian, Ziusudra, he first lands and establishes himself here. This is the land of the forefathers. In the Mount Ararat region, between the Black Sea and the Caspian Sea in Armenia. This region here is the Upper Caucasus Mountains, where we get the name Caucasians from. And the land of Syria, the Asir, they fall into the domains of Ishkor. Ishkor is also the one who is known as wielding the thunderbolt, the god of protection, strength, and fertility. In later times, these migrants here from this region of Ararat, they descend south through climate change, and they start to head eastwards into the Punjab, Afghanistan, Pakistan, into this region of India, and this becomes known as the Aryan invasion. Why you have so many stories of Indra being represented, or the wielder of the thunderbolt being represented in these areas, and also in the northwest regions as well. You see symbols of the swastika and the thunderbolt known as the Vajra. So, Baalbek to Lebanon is given unto Ishkor, Indra. The West Bank, Jerusalem, Sinai, the Saudi Peninsula is given to Nanarsin. Now, the Nile River Delta in Pre-Sumerian times is given to the builder of the Great Sphinx. The Great Sphinx predates the Mesopotamian culture. And it was there at the battle between Horus and Set. It was there to demarcate, the Great Sphinx being faced eastward to the mountains of Dilmun, which is the main site for connecting heaven and earth. The Sinai Peninsula becomes a major region and sacred center to separate Egypt from Mesopotamia. And these three sites of Dilmun, Jerusalem, and Baalbek mirror the constellation of Orion, with the Great Sphinx pointing eastwards to mark that location. So in Pre-Sumerian times, Cairo was given to the builder of the Great Sphinx, Ningishida. He is the son of Ta, whose symbol is the serpent, the twin snake caduceus, where we get the medical symbol, and where we also see the Israelites when they're going into wartime, they're carrying the brazen snake or the serpent into the air. This is a symbol of the serpent and the Nile River Valley Delta. See how it represents a snake and a serpent, symbolic of this culture here. So the other region where there are descendants and beings is on the other side of the world. Descendants of Cain have survived, and they're existing in this fertile crescent of the Gulf of Mexico. That you have from the Yucatan Peninsula, descendants of Cain, where they're building their pyramids, the Twin Towers in Teotihuacan, etc., where you see the remains of the Olmec in Veracruz, Tabasco, and even in Miami, the culture of the Mayans, Miami Mayas, and the descendants of Cain. Their symbol that the Olmecs have is they're wearing rubber helmets. You'll be able to see it. No, I can't pull it up right now. They wear these rubber helmets, show that they're also mining for precious material. And those mining expeditions, the first one in Pre-Sumerian culture, are the mining expeditions that occur along this line coming from the Peruvian Chilean mountains, going all the way up and through this serpent up here, up through Mexico. They're mining for gold. And these are controlled by the descendants of Enlil of Mesopotamia and his firstborn son, Ninurta, who is the legal surrogate of his father and represents him. The descendants of Cain are under his command in his territory. And they look upon these elders, these Nodites of this lost Garden of Eden, as their protectors, their inheritors, the ones who gave them their culture. So this is a proof of a continuation of the line of Adam, Cain being a descendant of Adam, carrying on separately in the Americas. And how do you distinguish the symbol of Cain and having survived in Americas? Well, I'll show you. So the descendants of Cain were given one distinct mark, and this mark was marked in the Bible as well, that they were sent to the land of Nod and given a distinctive mark to distinguish them from all the others. That mark being given was the one that had a distinct lack of facial hair. It did not allow for the beard, and this separated the bearded ones, which they called barbarians. Bearded is just where we get the name barber from. The Native American and indigenous cultures, they were known for having this distinctive lack of facial hair, and that would be the key indicator or sign of the lineage of Cain in North America, Pre-Sumerian culture. And that's it. This is the civilization before Sumeria is even established. This is establishing the world stage. I outline in some of my other videos the racial distribution, how there are earthlings. The earthlings are proliferating from the mountains to the dry lands. You have various colored races that are proliferating. The red man, you have the blue man, you have the yellow race in Asia, you have the green, orange, and the black races. And these all have the various movements. The blue races are predominantly residing in the European cultures. The red man has crossed the Bering Strait, and he's uh, carrying on in the Americas. Oriental races, or the yellow races, are in Asia. And then the orange race and green races are fighting each other, but their remains are absorbed by the black races, and their primary center is in northern Africa. And then later on, they move farther south into the Deccan, and darker skin races move into the south. The Adamites, the lineage of Adam, is being mixed with the Nodite Atlantean culture. These are being interbred through the line of Set. The Setite priesthood is becoming predominant, and this is the line of Shem. Noah's three sons are carrying three major strains and branches. The Shem, where the Shemites come from, they're going to reside in the region of Nanarsin in the Sinai Peninsula. They're going to inherit that. His son Japhet, who's the middle son, Japhet is the youngest son. Those resides in the north in the Ararat region, and he's helping Ishkor, Indra. And then you have the Hamites, the middle son of Noah, and he's residing in Africa, Egypt. Then you have the Aryans wandering about. And the Aryans are the Ijiji. You get the name Jin, the Argent. And this sets the stage for the first civilization to come forth. So when you're reading the Bible and you disregard the story of other races being on this planet, and you say, well, Adam's the first man, there was nothing before him, you disregard this whole history, the story, which is passed on through the spoken word. One thing I'm using here are names. And in names, this is actually how the history, the story of the Aryans is passed through the spoken word. The language is being communicated through an alphabet. And the alphabet represents characters and archetypes that are being passed through the spoken word. The oral transmission is the oldest form of communication and storytelling passed on, which is why in modern times they say how Jesus communicated his message was through storytelling. This is how it's done. So I'm telling you an ancient story, but I'm telling you the richness and depth of the names of the people, because the names carry a meaning behind it. Like when you have a son, you're going to give a name to your child. And that son will have a son, and a whole generation's passed. And how this is passed on is through the name. Noah, okay, son of Adam, son of Enki, etc., etc. That's all I have to say for now. Division of the earth in pre-Sumerian culture.